Blood-curdling facts that you wish you never knew. Part 32. In 2018, 2 daycare workers were charged after a video surfaced of them running an underground toddler fight club. The women instructed at least 6 children to have full-on fistfights. The most isolated place on the planet is a little dot in the Pacific Ocean called Point Nemo. It's the furthest spot from any kind of land, and the closest civilization is 1,000 miles away. In 2019, filmmakers hired 3 young-looking actresses to pose as 12-year-old girls for a documentary about online predators. Over the next 10 days, they received a combined 2,458 messages from sexual predators. Sarcasm is actually illegal in North Korea. In 2007, a woman died after drinking a little over a gallon of water in 3 hours. And she did it in order to win a Wii.
This is the most disturbing video you will ever see. Okay, so we all have seen very creepy videos and stuff in our lives. But this video I'm going to show you might be the creepiest and the most disturbing of all. Just a warning, you might lose sleep tonight after watching it.
I eat little baby's ice cream. It keeps me young. It keeps me light on my feet. I spring from activity to activity. I love my job. I love my life.
The most disturbing videos in the world. This picture contains a list of disturbing videos from least scary to the most. This will be my scariest series ever. Starting with tier 1, we're gonna take a look at a couple of them. The first one is the creepy Japanese McDonald's commercial. Before you watch this, the idea of this commercial was that hunger watches you at night. The second one we're going to take a look at is Dining Room or There Is Nothing. Just take a look at it. This was just tier 1. Tomorrow's video for tier 2 is where things start getting crazy. Make sure to like and follow for tomorrow's video for tier 2.
What they find out years later will haunt you. A young couple decided to take a late-night stroll through the forest, but little did they know what awaited them. As they walked, the man felt a sense of unease, but his girlfriend dismissed his concerns. Suddenly, the man stepped on something that felt alive and squishy under his feet. Before he could react, they heard rustling from the bushes beside them. They ignored it and kept walking until they returned home. Years later, and they were watching TV when an interview with a death row inmate caught their attention. The man had been asked if he had ever came close to getting caught for his heinous crimes. The killer responded with a chilling tale. "Yes, I remember one night in the woods a couple walked right by me. The man stepped on the body of the girl who I had just killed. I was hiding in the bushes just a few feet away, but they never saw me." The couple watched in horror as the name of one of the most notorious serial killers was revealed. His name was Ted Bundy. Follow because my next story is crazy.
This is the mysterious body snatching case of Brittany and Tiffany Wilson. Viewer discretion is advised. Brittany and Tiffany were popular socialites and daughter to Andrew Wilson, CEO of Wilson Cruise Liners. On April 24th, 2004, something disastrous would happen. The twins would hop off the surgery table looking like frickin' Shrek. On April 28th, the two would show up at a resort for a fashion event. Something was off about the two. Close friends noticed that their features had grown larger overnight. They were 6 more inches tall and were busting out of their velour tracksuits. It was reported that Brittany and Tiffany Wilson were doing things that they had never done before, like breakdancing, and forgetting the lyrics to world-renowned song 1,000 Miles by Vanessa Carlton. On the day of the fashion show, crowdgoers distinctly noticed that there were 2 sets of Wilson sisters. Later that day, it was revealed that Warren Vandergilt planned to kidnap the two to use the ransom money in order to save his bankruptcy. It was alleged that he was MC Hammer broke. During this revelation, FBI revealed themselves and shot Vandergilt. So what do you think happened to the twins during this fashionista excursion? Was it just a case of botched plastic surgery? Could this have been an alien body snatching? Did the FBI have something to do with it? Why were the Wilson sisters so frickin' pissed? Or was it something else?
Do you remember seeing this photo? This is Austin Harrouff. He was a college student and frat member who was involved in this horrible incident where he attacked a couple at random and chewed the face off of the husband. So at the time, Austin was a 19-year-old freshman at Florida State and everything seemed really normal, not out of the ordinary. So he eventually goes back and he's living with his family just west of Palm Beach when one night, when they're all out to dinner, he unexpectedly gets up from the table and leaves the restaurant. Kind of insane to think this, but the whole exchange is caught on camera. There were definitely signs that something was going on with him, as he reportedly believed he was half man, half horse. So he travels down the street in the dark, and for an unknown reason, he finds this couple just sitting outside of their garage. Next thing that anybody knew, there were these horrific screams coming from this driveway, and someone called 911. Austin had badly beaten them and used a weapon on them, and was found to be eating the face off of the husband when police arrived. They almost had to end him, as they couldn't even get him off with a taser.
Disturbing footage of people being followed home. In February of this year, Ali Porath had just arrived home with her 2 children. Her doorbell camera recorded her and her children going inside, closing the door, and immediately being followed by a mysterious man. The man knocked on the door, and even tried the doorknob, but Ali did not answer. He stayed on their doorstep for a long time. Ali felt that he was wanting her to open the door, so that he could push himself inside. Finally the man leaves the doorstep, but her security camera captures him pacing outside the front of her house. Ali's husband was more than an hour away, so she called the police. By the time the police arrived, the man had mysteriously disappeared.
This mother murdered her 3 kids during a psychosis episode. On January 24th, 2023, 32-year-old Lindsay Clancy took the life of her 5-year-old daughter Cora, 3-year-old son Dawson, and 7-month-old baby Callan. On this day, at 4:53 p.m., Lindsay asked her husband Patrick to pick up some dinner at a restaurant not too far from the house. About an hour later, Patrick returned home and noticed that there was absolute silence. He called for Lindsay's name, and after no response, he went into the bedroom and noticed that the window was open. Lindsay had jumped out the window in an attempt to take her own life, but she was still alive. This is where things get really sad. Patrick went to the basement and found all 3 kids with exercise cords around their necks. Both Cora and Dawson passed away in the hospital, but baby Callan passed away 3 days later due to his injuries. Lindsay's defense attorney claimed that she was suffering from postpartum psychosis, which led her to break from reality and murder her children. But the state attorney argues that these killings were premeditated and that Lindsay sent her husband to get food on purpose so that she can commit these crimes. However, Dr. Caney, who is a board member of Postpartum Support International, clarified that women can completely break with reality during violent episodes. She also said that women who are a few weeks postpartum should be aware of the symptoms of psychosis, which is usually hallucinating. Lindsay was charged with 2 counts of murder, 3 counts of strangulation and assault, and battery with a deadly weapon. And get this, she's currently paralyzed from the waist down after jumping out the window.
An update in the Idaho University murders, where 4 students were killed, has revealed that blood was oozing through the walls in one of the worst crime scenes police have ever seen. 4 Idaho University students were stabbed to death in their off-campus home on Sunday. They were discovered after authorities received an anonymous call saying someone was unconscious in the property. The students, Kaylee, Madison, Ethan and Zana, were targeted by an unknown suspect, and the town's mayor Art Becht is saying it's likely to be a one-off instance. Investigators are currently scouring through the trash near their home to look for an edged weapon which they believe was used in the attack. The autopsies are scheduled to be completed by the end of the week and are hoping to provide more definitive answers. Police still have no suspect and no weapon and are asking anyone with any information at all to come forwards.
RCMP are investigating after 17 horses were shot and killed. It happened in a remote area west of Kamloops, BC on provincial Crown land. Police say the horses were often in that area, and the carcasses were found over a distance of around 2 kilometers. Police describe the area as difficult terrain that isn't traveled much. They also believe that these horses, some of which were very young, were dead for days before they were found. The horses are also of significance to the local Skitchison Indian band. Police estimate there are about 250 horses grazing the Crown lands. RCMP say no motive has been confirmed, but they are asking anyone with information to come forward.
South Park Scary Urban Legends.
Eric Cartman!
Eric Cartman is one of the kids that everyone hates because he never really has nothing nice to say, and he's just a big bully overall. But this wasn't always the case. A Reddit user by the name of Stab Hamsters came up with this theory that Eric got more and more evil as the show progresses due to the people of South Park. In the first 4 seasons of the show, we see Eric as a typical bully and a brat. But after the season 5 episode, Scott Tenorman Must Die, he noticed that Eric was starting to have psychotic tendencies. The Reddit user pointed out that Cartman's self-esteem was being destroyed by the town. For example, he is constantly being reminded of his mother's drug and mental issues, and for an 8-year-old, you can see how this affects him a lot. In the episode Jacovosaurs, Eric is trying to make these species welcome in South Park, but eventually the town would lie to him and send them away to Paris. However, in a season 24 episode, adult Eric Cartman agrees to help out adult versions of Kyle and Stan go back in time, only to find out that Eric is homeless and depressed. Basically, if Eric never lived in the town, he would be a much happier and friendly person.
This woman's dog saved her from a skinwalker.
Why are you running? Hey.
What was this dog seeing that we couldn't see? I don't know, but dogs have a sixth sense or something. Like and follow for more spooky crap.
Horrifying creature that lives on a tiny uninhabited island, and at night it will come out and it will eat anything from coconuts to fish to birds to people. Amelia Earhart, along with her flight navigator Fred Noonan, would make their way to tiny Howland Island, but they would never arrive. When they disappeared, it was heartbreaking and it made international headlines, and this huge search is launched for them, but they can't find them. And after 2 weeks, they officially declared they were lost at sea and most likely dead. 3 years later, a British scientist was on this tiny little uninhabited island called Niku Maroro, and they made a startling discovery. He found an incomplete skeleton next to what looked like the remains of a campfire, and their skeleton was kind of torn all over the place. Because of Niku Maroro's proximity to Howland Island, everybody speculated that this has got to be the body of either Amelia Earhart or Noonan. The bones were sent to 2 doctors, and they unfortunately said, no, this isn't Earhart or Noonan, this is somebody else. So those bones were ultimately disposed of, and everybody just kind of forgot about it when a forensic anthropologist decided to manually re-examine the measurements of the bones that were taken off of Niku Maroro Island and compare them to real measurements of Amelia Earhart. And they discovered that clearly those doctors in Fiji had made a mistake, because the measurements of these bones match Amelia Earhart almost exactly. So researchers go to the area where these bones were found, and they look around and they find a couple 1930s era bottles, glass bottles, and one of them is a freckle cream, and Amelia Earhart had lots of freckles and she liked to use freckle cream to cover them up. She was kind of famous for doing that. So while some scientists are putting their energy into confirming that yes, those bones were Amelia Earhart. We don't have the bones, but we can show you with the measurements and the freckle cream, and there's another picture that apparently shows the landing gear of her plane off of Niku Maroro Island. And there's another group of scientists and researchers that are saying, okay, let's assume that that really was Amelia Earhart. Let's figure out what happened to her once she got to Niku Maroro Island. And the leading theory is horrifying. Niku Maroro Island is inhabited by one of the scariest creatures on the planet.
the coconut crab. They're 3 feet long, they can carry at least 6 times their body weight, and they use their pincers that are as strong as a lion's jaw to rip open coconuts, which is their main source of food. But coconuts are not the only thing they eat. They'll also eat pigs, each other. They'll even eat themselves. The few researchers and scientists that have gone out to Niku Island have said at night, thousands of these crabs will emerge from their underground burrows and they'll go looking for food. And they have a really keen sense of smell and they can smell blood. And so the theory goes, Earhart and Noonan are making their way to Howland Island. They get off track somehow and they wind up crash landing 350 miles away on Niku Island on one of the reefs. Noonan probably dies on impact, and Earhart, who's badly wounded and probably bleeding, she gets onto the island and she makes her way up to that area where that campfire was found. And for some amount of time, Earhart is able to survive off of whatever she had on her in those glass bottles, but in her weakened state and bleeding, at some point she probably attracted the coconut crabs who one night came out and swarmed her, ripped her to pieces, and ate her. Today, Niku Island is only inhabited by the coconut crabs and it's protected land under the Republic of Kiribati. And so if you want to go, you have to get express permission from the Republic of Kiribati and they send someone to go with you. You can only travel there at certain parts of the year, and even then it's incredibly dangerous.
This man fed crocodiles. Actually, let me rephrase that. This man fed crocodiles human beings. Hi, my name is Ethan, and trigger warning, this is a dark case. Carl Panzram was a mass serial killer in the 1920s, and he unalived 21 individuals. 6 of those he hired to work alongside him on a boat. One regular day at work, he unexpectedly shot and fed them to the crocodiles. People love to say the 1900s was a very calm and peaceful century, but based on the cases that I've read, there's been nothing but evil stuff that happened then. Carl also essayed over 1,000 boys, robbed multiple homes, and ruined hundreds of families. On August 30th, 1928, Carl was stopped in Baltimore and arrested. He was then sentenced to death, and on September 5th, 1930, he was hung, and people said that his crimes were so gruesome that he was Satan himself.
Now, a lot of people have been tagging me in this video, so I'm here to explain the backstory to this whole thing. Now, bear with me, this is a very graphic and long breakdown of this whole thing. Now, the little girl you see in this video is named Sandra Cantu, who was born on March 8th, 2001. Her parents were named Maria Chavez and Daniel Cantu. She lived in a trailer park with her parents, her grandparents, and her 3 older siblings in Tracy, California. Now, Sandra was a really happy, bubbly girl, and she was also very talkative, so she would strike up a conversation with almost everyone. And she was also very helpful around the neighborhood. But things would take a dark turn on March 27, 2009. Sandra had just come back from school, and she was very energetic and happy. So she asked her mother if she could play outside with her friends. Now, in the neighborhood, it's normal for kids to play outside in the park spaces or in their friends' houses, so her mother said yes. Sandra then proceeded to go skipping happily to her friend's house, knocking on their houses. That was the last time Maria saw her daughter alive. It was getting pretty late, and Sandra had not come home yet.
What, she didn't come home for dinner? Or she didn't call me?
Maria was getting worried, so she called Sandra's friends and asked if they seen her. Her friends said that they haven't seen her for hours. Eventually, the police was involved and ordered a search, and even went as far as to offer $20,000 for whoever can find Sandra Cantu. At this exact time, Maria had received a text message from her neighbor Melissa McCumchie, something like that. I'm not pronouncing that last name. She had texted her, quote, "Tell the police I lost a suitcase. Don't know if this makes it different or not." Back in the town, they were holding candles and praying for Sandra's safety when all of a sudden a woman burst out crying and screaming and telling the police that she had found a note on her front yard. The note said, and I quote, "Cantu locked in stolen suitcase, thrown in water on Bachetti Road and Whitehall Road, witness." Now, this was very off because the note had obvious spelling mistakes, and The woman who reported finding this note was the same woman who texted Maria about the suitcase. Up until this point, they didn't suspect Melissa of anything because she was a mother and she was a Sunday school teacher. Why would she do something like this? Eventually, a farm worker who was walking down that same water path that the note said found the suitcase and called the police. And as expected, Sandra's body was found inside the suitcase. Forensic evidence shows that she had been beaten with a foreign object and smothered to death. They also found traces of Xanax in her system. The police checked security cameras and found that Sandra was making her way to Melissa's house and Melissa leaving in her SUV. Earlier that day, Melissa claimed that she went to the church at 5 and came home at 6:30 p.m. Police investigated the church and found a rolling pin with a bent handle and a brownish reddish stain on the side. The stain tested positive for Sandra's DNA. Now, when they went to arrest Melissa tried to unalive herself by swallowing a razor to avoid consequences for her actions. But she made a recovery in the hospital and was quickly discharged. After she was discharged, the police then arrested her and interrogated her. Melissa said that the whole thing was an accident, and she said that Sandra climbed in the suitcase because she was playing hide and seek with her daughter. Melissa didn't know Sandra was hiding in the suitcase and closed it up anyways, and Sandra died of asphyxiation. Melissa was tried and almost given the death penalty, but however, she pleaded guilty and received life in prison without parole. During the whole court trial, Sandra's father burst out crying and said this:
"You took the life of an innocent little girl, and she didn't do nothing. She's not even old enough to decide to eat ice cream yet."
Now, the reason Melissa did this is still unknown. Melissa doesn't even know why she did the whole thing.
I wish I could give you an explanation for what happened. I owe you an explanation. I still cannot understand why I did what I did.
Like and follow for more.